There's something that has always intrigued me about experience films. Heavily atmospheric films that create something unique with the tone, visuals, and how the message is overall conveyed have always been films I have loved. Films like 2001 and Eraserhead are some of the most broad examples to think of, but the one that stands out the most to me is It's Such a Beautiful Day. So this is It's Such a Beautiful Day, a cinematic experience. While this isn't the biggest thing to bring up, this film has a great sense of humor. The interesting thing is I didn't notice a lot of the jokes at first, but you start to notice the subtle comedy after a couple of rewatches. The best part about the humor is the comedy is never in your face. It's also subtle and just in a way underneath, and it's so visual as well with the way it's portrayed, kind of like a Charlie Chaplin movie that's animated, but just so much more ridiculous. It's all so dumb and makes no sense. Like Bill saying he had a dream of fishes on top of his head. It's so dumb, funny, yet subtle in the way it plays out. This joke even plays in later when he says he thinks he has a fish inside his head. Just little things like that show the writers have a witty sense of humor to how things are portrayed. While not the main focus of the film, it's an interesting thing to discuss in the movie. The animation overall, I will say, is an interesting thing to discuss because while it's simple, it's also interesting at the exact same time. Its simplistic designs in a way enhance what the film is going for. It makes everything easier for us all to understand. It's simplistic, but in a way it's used to its advantage. Because even if they are just stick figures, sometimes they do end up using these sort of creative designs as well. Sometimes they do different things with the imagery to keep you engaged, such as maybe something interesting with the background, or there's something interesting going on with the bill, like such as him having a fish on his head or something like that, just to keep the animation different, creative, and interesting. Even sometimes they utilize color in a creative way, not really just in a way to make you say, wow, that looks cool, but in a way to immerse you into the weird, odd atmosphere this movie is trying to convey, like when they show a seizure. The animation even has a reason to be as simplistic as it is. It shows us in a way how we all are. We all look at the basics of things and never appreciate all the stuff around us. We never look at the details, which is how Bill is in this film. He doesn't really seem to really appreciate life as much. He doesn't seem to appreciate the small things in life that we get. But then we start to see more detail in the animation, more color, and more life. And Bill starts to think about those little things more, and starts to, as a whole, appreciate every small little moment that comes his way. This film is one of the most uniquely told stories I've ever seen. It's told completely from a narrator, which sounds on paper like a horrible idea, but it oddly works in a way. The narrator sort of says just random things that happen here and there, and in a way feels like random memories that pop into our heads. They're things that don't really change us in a way, but we remember them for whatever reason. It sort of is like how the little things in life that pass us by quickly that we remember for a long time to come. It's a unique way to have us feel like we're in the main character's mind, that we're thinking what they are. So many films will try to have them just talk and say everything that they think, but this movie doesn't do that. It's also not a film with a straightforward narrative. It never tells its story in order. Sometimes it will even go back in time and tell us about Bill's ancestry just at random, which we're able to follow pretty well. It seems like that would be confusing, but it gives it its own unique style. Sometimes the tone might change quickly, or something just weird happens and without a context. But in a way, it works in this film. Since it's a movie about life, I find it to work quite well, because in life there is no consistent tone, there is no straightforward narrative, and there is no set in stone goal. The way the story is told elevates the movie in many ways, and couldn't have been told any other way, making this movie a one of a kind gem. While this isn't exactly the biggest thing to talk about, there's one character I want to discuss. Bill. While he never says a word in the entire film, he's one of my favorite protagonists, which sounds shocking, but in a way, Bill does sort of strive and wonder things that we all do in life. He wishes he could live forever. He wishes he could live and do everything he wants to do, but knows the reality that he will only get older, that no matter how hard he tries, no matter what happens, he will only be human. The thing is, we all feel like we're in Bill's head, like we are analyzing what it's like being in his head, because in a way the narrator feels like that voice in his mind that reminds him of random things, that makes us feel how he feels. When Bill is daydreaming and drifting off, we feel like we're drifting off as well. When he's having a mental breakdown, we feel and understand what it's like through the visuals. It's a very interesting, non-traditional way of us empathizing with the main character. It's definitely different, and some people might feel distant from the main character, but if anything, because of this, I feel closer to him. I feel a bond with this character, a bond that I feel I will have with him forever. It's Such a Beautiful Day has one of the smallest soundtracks I've ever seen and probably one of my favorites. It's just so hypnotic, weird, and just overall captivating to listen to while watching this cinematic work of art unfold. With the score, unlike other ones, I feel like it would only work with this movie. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely ones that are like that as well, but I feel like it makes it stand above average soundtracks in my opinion. The second you hear it, it's instantly recognizable and you guess exactly what it's from. It's so simplistic like the animation, and just like that, it works so well. The way it adds to the atmosphere is just phenomenally done. It can really hit emotional scenes, or even scenes where Bill is at a grocery store. It's an all-around brilliant soundtrack that adds to this wonderful work of art. This will probably be the longest segment of the video, because it definitely has the most to discuss. It's Such a Beautiful Day does so much in a little over an hour that most movies do double its runtime. For most of the film, we can see that everything is colorless, and not detailed or heavily noticed at all. It's the narrator just saying brief things that Bill is doing. This is because it's just how we all are. Things just pass us by and we don't notice them very well. And they are there, we just never appreciate them at all. But then later on, about 2/3 into the film, or about 3/4 pretty much, everything is colorized, everything pops, everything is more detailed and noticed. Bill is starting to appreciate things in a new light and seeing things in a new light. He's starting to appreciate and notice things, like how soft his carpet is, or how beautiful the plants look. And we start to notice things along with him. We experience what he experiences. It's a motivational story that makes us think about life in a new light. The atmosphere changes from this weird, odd, quirky, and kind of twisted environment into something elegant and gorgeous. The atmosphere changes into something comfortable, delightful as well as powerful. You really realize all of the elements of filmmaking tied together. The animation, soundtrack, characters, and themes, as well as storytelling, all tie in with each other to convey the message that the film is going for. Then, when it's all done, it ties it all up into a perfect, yet unsatisfying ending. This ending shows us why we shouldn't live forever, why living forever is a bad idea, because if that were to happen, we would outlive everything, and since it would be impossible for us to die, we would live all alone for the rest of our lives. We would outlive everything that has ever happened. Most people say they don't want to die. In fact, death is the number one fear from all of us. But the thing is, most of us don't think about what would happen if we didn't die. It shows us in a way why we have to die at some point, but at the same time tells us to appreciate our lives, that we should notice the little things that happen to us and appreciate them to the fullest, as well as telling us the consequences to not dying. The themes conveyed in this film are truly magnificent, and the way they are shown is truly even better. I feel like the only way I can perfectly wrap this entire video essay up is by saying the last thing I said in my letterbox review, which is probably the best way to end any time I talk about this movie. This film shows us life, how we look at it, and what it becomes when we reach the end point of it. It's shocking that this film is only a little over an hour, yet it's more profound, powerful, and more meaningful than films double its runtime. I normally don't say this about movies, but everyone should see this film, not just film critics.